What's up, guys? Welcome back to FishOfHex. Today we're going to continue on with our subscriber Q&A with Mike Lemming. So what's up, Mike? How you doing today, dude?
What's going on, man? How's everything?
Good, good. So what do you want to talk about today?
Today we will talk about corals. I don't want to. I wanted to let everybody know it's not like what do you do with this coral? What do you do with that coral? How do you care for this coral? It's mainly a broad spectrum, like how to keep them, what you do,
Hmm.
um, just corals in general. Is not specifying any of them, but just questions in regards to keeping them and stuff like that.
Okay, cool.
So if you're ready, I'm
Yeah,
ready
let's
to
go ahead.
go.
Let's go
So
ahead with it,
first
man.
question, a lot of people probably are wondering this: how long have you been keeping corals?
Probably since the beginning, I would say the first like maybe half a year after I started saltwater, I kind of moved into like the soft corals like you are, like the zoanthids and the leathers and all that stuff. It's been a while. I mean, I don't even know exactly how long, but I mean, I've been in the hobby totally for 13 years. That's including my freshwater. So man, it's been a long time. I mean, I can't really pinpoint an exact day
But
or a
it's been a
year, but
long
it's been a
time.
long time. Yeah, and it's not really so much how long you've been, it's pretty much how you progressed.
Yeah.
And as with everybody, I started off with the zoanthids and the soft corals, and then moved my way up to Ophelia and all
Yeah.
that. So,
All right. Well, because that's the one thing, you post
hmm
all these videos on how to do stuff, and
yeah.
for all we know, you've been keeping corals for 6 months now, and you're just winging it. But
Dude,
it
it's been like
seems
3 months, man. You kidding me?
yeah,
Yeah.
it seems like you're knowledgeable about it.
Yeah.
Here's another question. What's your process for acclimating corals? I'm sure at one point you've done a
hmm
video, but
hmm
you bring a coral home. What are you doing with it?
Actually, I haven't done a video on that. I think that's on my to-do list, so that's one thing I got to do. When I bring a coral home, it my acclimation process kind of changes a little bit depending on species. So, say if I bring home a leather coral, like a Kenya tree or something, so I would go ahead and put that coral in a container, and then put that in a bigger container, and I would drip that coral for probably 20 minutes, depending on the species. Something like a leather or zoanthid doesn't need to drip that long. Once it starts overflowing for a little bit, then I will put that container, like I'd pour all that water into another container, and then that's when I would do my actual dip. At that point, I would have take fresh water out of the tank, rinse off the coral in that fresh water to make sure I'm not introducing any kind of dip or anything like that into the reef tank, and then put it where part of the acclimation process is putting it in the tank where it can be temporarily to get adjusted to your lighting and your water, and then moving it around from there. So yeah,
So you don't float the bags or nothing. You just go right into the drip.
yeah. Not with I float with fish, but with coral I do a little differently. I mean, I guess it really matter if you get temperature with floating and then drip, acclimate salinity and stuff. That's fine. But I like to do it all at one time with coral.
Yeah.
So.
So like you said with a Kenya tree, what are you doing? Say you bring home an acropora. Is it the same thing or is it kind of different from the
It's the same process, just a lot longer.
longer?
I take a lot longer to like if I get a $80 piece of what's one that usually takes longer, like a staghorn or something, like a small stag that's like 80 $90. I will drip that for a longer period of time, and then I will also dip it for, and I wouldn't say a longer period of time, but I'm more careful on checking out, see if there's any red bugs or anything like that, really taking the time for that coral. So yep.
Well, good, because that's one thing. I mean, I do the same thing. Like when you sent me that coral pack, I kind of did it quickly. I floated half of them. The other half, I just went right into adding like a half cup every
hmm
10 or 15 minutes. Like I said, I was just trying to do everything quickly because it was a 2 day process from getting the coral. So I was just trying to get them in the tank quickly. So I probably acclimated them pretty fast.
hmm
But I did the same thing. I dripped it for a little while. Then I did the dip. Then I, kind of dunked it in a RODI and put it in the tank. So, I just
hmm
wanted to make sure I was doing everything right. And I'm sure, I have subscribers
hmm
that, aren't too sure what to do. I have subscribers too that just have fish only. So they're not
hmm
even into the reef yet. So these are good questions that I got. Um, so my next question is, you obviously just answered that you dip, but what are you using when you dip?
I use Coral RX. That's just my preferred.
Yeah, me too.
I've been using that forever, and it's like I believe it's what one or two capfuls for per gallon.
Yeah.
And then when I basically I have it written down in the little fish room, but I measured out what a capful actually came out to in milliliters, and that way if I do sub a gallon, I can measure out kind of roughly what it is.
What is
But
that?
but
Because
you
I
can
would like
wing
to
it.
know that.
I'll have to look. I want to say it's 5 ml, but I'll have to check, man. I have it written down in there because I always forget what the heck it is.
Because
Um,
I do that every single time. I got to read the directions and then bust out my phone and figure out how
well, the
much I
thing is,
need
is
to
it really
use.
doesn't matter as long as you're not pouring in like 2 capfuls for a little container. You're gonna be
Yeah,
fine. I mean, it really doesn't have to be that precise. I just get roughly roughly
yeah.
where the amount is. Yeah. Oh, and
So
for all of you who call me meathead, and I do have a bro jug, so
he's
you,
pretty
yeah,
meatheadish,
yeah, kind of, yeah.
but
So
meatheads have muscles. This guy
yeah,
doesn't.
yeah, suck a
Uh,
dick.
so have you? So I'm sure you've seen people using like the Bayer method and stuff, right? How do you feel about that?
What is
Because
it? I'm
that kind of
sorry,
scares me. I don't know.
I didn't
It's
hear
like
what you
bug
said.
spray, basically.
Oh, like spraying it, just
No,
doing that in
you
general.
know the Bayer
Oh,
insect
the medicine,
repellent?
the pill. Oh,
I don't
I've
know. It's
never.
just like I think they buy it at like Home Depot. It's like an
Yeah,
insect something Bayer stuff.
yeah.
What do you feel about that? Because I've
I've
seen a
never
few
done
people
it.
using that.
I've never done
It
it. I mean,
scares me,
I I've never done it. I mean, I don't really have an opinion on it. I've always just bought the coral dip and did it that way from the very
and it
beginning.
works, right? It works for me.
I'd have to look into it, man, because I've heard of it and I've heard of other methods people use like to kill red bugs and stuff like that, but I've never personally did it and never
Yeah, me
had to
either.
do it. But I'm sure if it works, man. But I'm just a coral dip kind of guy. I do it as I
Me
have the
too.
whole time, and
Yeah, me too. I use Coral RX. It's the first one I've ever bought, and I
mhm.
still have a ton of it left. I'm too scared to use that Bayer stuff. I feel like I don't know. I've seen good results with everybody else. It
I
scares me.
suggest if you're not familiar with something and you can't find the proper research that you're looking for, or don't know anybody who's done it successfully, don't try it unless you're completely comfortable with it. Do the Coral RX. It's got simple directions. Follow the directions, and
And it
you'll be
works.
fine.
I've seen
Yeah.
some nasty stuff come out of some of my corals, man.
Oh yeah,
It's
me too.
see them
Yeah.
running around. It's pretty crazy. So you kind of answered this earlier about my next question was process for dipping. So what you're saying is you acclimate it in that bowl within the
hmm
jug,
hmm
and then you use that water to use the dip. And then what do you leave in the dip for like 15 minutes? And then
Depending on the coral, I usually leave them in there for probably 10, 15 minutes, and then I'll come through with a brush and clean them while they're in the dip. Like I'll take them out, clean them off, and just inspect the coral, put it back in the dip. Once I'm done with all the corals, usually I get a couple at a time, so I'm cleaning multiple things, and then use the fresh, from the reef tank to dip it and rinse it off before putting it in on the frag rack. Yeah, so
okay,
it's about the process.
yeah, because I do that same thing, and I remember I saw a video on it like months and months ago, and now that I'm actually doing it regularly, I'm getting new corals, trying to, make my tank better. I kind of lost track of where I found that. Now I just, in my head, I think that's the way to do it. I could be wrong, but now you're kind of reassuring me that I am doing it the right way, which is
hmm
good. Um, so again, back to you buy a new coral, you get it home, fish store, wherever you get it from, you get it home, you acclimate it, you put it on like the frag rack and let it like
hmm
grow out before you put it actually into the aquascape, right?
Well, my process is now that I have, unfortunately, where I'm at in my with this particular reef tank, I'm kind of running out of real estate. What I do is I bring a coral home. Like I brought home some stag the other day from Kingpin Corals, and actually I put it on a frag rack to let it adapt to the light. Because the frag rack, if you see in my videos, it's about like 5 or 6 inches off the bottom of the tank,
Mhm.
and I let it sit there for like 3 or 4 weeks just to kind of see how it grows. And then if I find that the growth isn't where I want it to be, then I know that the coral is going to do better in higher light. So when I put in the
But you have a
aquascape,
few of them, so you can kind of
yeah,
measure because you have like a few in the back
hmm
that are higher, so you can
hmm
kind of like adapt to what the coral does.
yeah. Once I know the coral is going to make it, then I know it's worth putting in the aquascape. I mean, you'll know within a matter of a couple weeks to like a month when it comes to an acropora if it's going to do well in your system. And some species just don't do well. I mean, I haven't. I mean, I've had only one right now. Early on, that didn't do well, but other than that, I've been pretty lucky starting off low light and working its way up. So.
So to my next question, so you have it on the frag rack. It's doing good whatever rack you put it on.
Mhm.
What's your next plan of attack? Do you glue it? Do you use like the epoxy in your video? Like how are you adding it to the system?
It kind of depends on where it's gonna go in the aquascape. If there's a hole already there, I like to use gel super glue. That seems to be the best method for
Me
me.
too.
Now, depending on if what type of coral it is, if it's an encrusting, I like to use to just cut the bottom of the frag plug off and then glue it onto the rock and let it encrust over and then
Yeah.
getting on the rock. Um, But if it's something like a higher end piece, like I said, a stag or an acropore, I like to try to get it in a part of a rock where it can be more stable with just the glue. But if I have to, I'll use the epoxy. I'm not really a big fan of it because it just takes a while. Because you kind of got this white speck. I mean, I know you can get color kind, but you
Yeah.
kind of just have like this white speck in the middle of your tank until it finally turns, purple from the core line. So I'd rather use super glue at all times, but it just dictates on where it's actually going in the system. So
Yeah. And with that super glue, I believe you are using Gorilla Glue.
yeah, the Gorilla, it's for the Home Depot one.
Yeah.
It's the Gorilla Glue, super glue, and that's just something that I've used for years, and
Yeah, I've been
definitely.
using whatever the blue one is. I have it downstairs. The Loctite. The
Yeah.
Loctite. I've just
As
it's
long as
been
it's
working for me.
gel, that's
Yeah,
fine.
it's a
Yeah.
lot. It's because there's like levels. Like I can buy one for like $2, but this stuff's like $4 or $5, and it does gel up, which is nice because it's not going to just put it in the tank and just go everywhere. So it's nice to see like these little bubbles, and
hmm
it's worked out for me. It's
Yeah, I
doing
get
good.
the one in the
Oh,
little green bottle. You'll see it in my fragging videos. It's one with the little
I've
green
I've
top.
seen it. You
Yeah.
have that, yeah.
hmm
I've seen it in a couple of your videos that you
Yeah.
use the
That's the
Gorilla
only one
Glue.
I use.
I had one time where I was using Gorilla Glue, but I don't know what it was, but it was like foamy. So I
Mm.
put it in was trying to put my Green Star polyp on a rock because it was just on a frag plug. So I took it off there and I put it on the rock. I put in that Gorilla Glue, but it was some kind of like foam. So once I dropped into the water, it just floated all over my tank, and it looked like weak styrofoam just like floating all over my
Hmm.
tank. So obviously that is not the Gorilla Glue to
Well,
use.
one thing to be aware of, and I wanted to mention this because this actually happened to me, is when you use a gel super glue, be aware of the fish because I know tangs like to pick at new things in the tank. But my scooter blend, he ended up going like I finally caught him, but he went like almost a week without eating because he went and picked out super glue that wasn't completely hardened, and it like sealed his mouth shut. So I had to catch him, take him out, and go in there and pull out the glue out of his mouth to allow
You
him to
got
eat
your
again.
mouth open.
Yeah, I opened up his mouth and cut out
Wow.
the super glue. Yeah, well, he would be, obviously dead from starving. But just be aware that your fish might pick at it. I know that Zeze, the sailfin tang, I've had to pull him out 3 times because he grabs the super glue and then he glues his mouth shut. So he lets me catch him at that point because he's like, oh, I made a mistake, and then I have to cut the glue out of his mouth. So just be aware of that. Keep an eye on how much you put in there and keep an eye on your fish
Yeah.
because they pick at that kind of stuff. So.
Well, that's a good thing to know because I had no idea. I would have just chopped it up to I don't know. We'll just probably watch my fish die and not even realize that he's glued shut.
Yeah,
But that's a good
yeah.
story. I had no idea. I'd never heard of that happening before.
Hmm.
Um,
Might be just my luck, but whatever, right?
so to the people who haven't seen your videos, you don't got to go nuts telling me how to do it. But basically, softies are low flow, low light. LPS a little more flow, a little more light, and then LPS and then SPS are a lot of flow, a lot of light. Is that basically the rule of thumb?
It sums it up pretty much. I mean, and it's also nutrient levels are need to be more pure as you go up in that level. I mean, granted, you can get easier like Monty SPS that don't really need that low nutrient system. And again, you don't really need a low nutrient system to be successful with the SPS, but it does improve color. So it is true. I mean, softies, you can pretty much, they can be low light or high light. You can put them anywhere, they'll grow. The flow is about the same. You're really forgiving on softies. LPS, depending on the species, um, I usually start mine low to medium, and I don't really have a type of LPS that I like having up at the top of the tank. It just hasn't happened. And then SPS, of course, I usually do mid to high. But I mean, I have SPS on the bottom of my tank right now, and they seem to be doing
Oh,
doing
really?
decent. Yeah, so.
Um, Here's another question. So you buy corals. You ever buy offline? You just stick to kingpins? You go to LFS's, friends? Where do you get the majority of your corals from?
The only time I've ever bought coral offline, it wasn't a good experience. Um, and I don't really need to do that now that I have the connections that I do have.
Yeah.
Any coral I'll ever need is going to be within 20 minutes. I don't ever have to, go online. But for those people who don't have that luxury, that resource, buying online is fine. You just have to keep an eye on who you buy from. Don't buy from Joe Schmo. Um, and like I said, I recommend Kingpin Corals because I've seen him ship. I've seen how he ships, and I haven't had any issues with it.
I didn't have
Um,
any with his corals either.
so, I mean, the reality is, it's just you can buy online. Just be aware of who you buy from.
Mhm.
Pretty much, be reputable. Because it's easy to throw coral in the bag and watch it get crushed and die on
Yeah,
the way
for the
too.
best, right?
Yeah.
So dosing. Like me, I'm a beginner. What do you recommend?
For corals in general.
Like say,
Well,
like me. Once I set up this new tank, I won't have this calcium, alkalinity, magnesium issue, so everything will be low.
mhm.
And I'm sure there's people out there the same way. They have low levels, and they're just trying to figure out how to dose, how much to dose. What's your recommendations? You know, I go to BRS. I bring, I get a box sent with the calcium, alkalinity, and the magnesium, the two-part.
Mhm.
Where do I start? I know I don't have a dosing pump yet, or
Okay.
whoever doesn't, but like, where do I start?
Well, in the beginning, when you start dosing, you're going to want obviously keep it simple. You don't want to add any like extra stuff any more than you have to. Keep the basic calcium, alkalinity, and magnesium. Those are the three additives that you will be dosing. That you really don't need anything else other than that. My rule of thumb is on a tank that's got softies, you really won't need to dose any additives. Your water change every 2 weeks will suffice when it comes to replenishing those lower magnesium, calcium, alkalinity, all that stuff. And usually in a softy tank, Coraline is what uses up that. Not really the coral doesn't use it up. Now in a tank that has mostly LPS, um, and it's about medium stocked. I mean, it just depends. So what I recommend is starting at 15 milliliters per 25 gallons of actual water. So that's after you take your full system minus the rock. You kind of get an estimate how much water is there, and then start off, like I said, 15 milliliters of both equally of calcium and alkalinity daily, per 25 gallons. And then in a week, test the water parameters and see where you're at, and then make adjustments from there. If you find out in a week that your water parameters are still subpar, you're not really in a good range, then bump it up a little bit, but do it like in small increments and test
So you're
in a
saying
week.
dose once a week and then test, like dose, wait a week, then test,
Dose every day
and
that
then
that amount, and then test once a week to see what the changes are on the
because I
system.
was kind of iffy on that. I've heard you say that before, and you say dose 15 milliliters per 25, and then check a week later. So I'm glad you clarified that. So dose
Yeah,
15 milliliters
daily. Yeah,
per 25 gallons for your system daily for a week. Check it, and then go from there.
yeah. But that's with a medium stocked LPS to SPS tank. Now, if you're all softies, you need to reconsider that amount. Start off with maybe 5 milliliters per 25 if you have all softies and a lot of coralline and stuff, because you're going to want to keep an eye on that as well. It's not, like I said, it's not going to be as demanding. And then once you move up to SPS, by the time you move up to SPS, you should have already built that foundation of knowing what your tank usually runs at and is
Mhm.
comfortable at, so that adjustment won't be as difficult.
Yeah.
So I hope that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. I get exactly what you're saying. So this is another question I have for you because I know you're about to start something new. But for those who, like me, once I get the 75 going, I will be dosing. I plan to get the same pump that you have and then just dose accordingly. I'll probably do it on my own for a little bit, like you said, 5 or 15 milliliters, and then just kind of judge on my own.
Hmm.
Once I kind of get it down to what I need per week, then that's when I'll set up the pump. Um, and again, I know you're starting something new, but what do you recommend for those who are starting out, like who think they can get more, color or something out of like a color
Hmm.
supplement? Like,
Hmm.
is that something you think that should be that a beginner can try out, or you think that's strictly for the professional, reefer, if you will?
I
Is
think
that something?
I think that anybody can do something like a Red Sea color program. Um, the thing with that is it's going to be, how you're financially dependent. You can have whatever you want in this hobby if you can afford it. Now, if you have these, I mean, primarily these are going to help stony corals. So I don't really know what they're going to do for soft corals, but I mean, I don't really have that many soft corals to really tell you how the Red Sea color program does. And this, isn't a review on that particular program, but I have been using Red Sea from pretty much the beginning of this system, and I've seen good color and growth from, and I want to put it towards that system. I mean, there's no guarantees that it's actually what's causing everything, but I have noticed the difference between this system and my last one, and the one before that, since I've started using that. Now I'll do a video on this. I get the stuff tomorrow, but the KZ has a new program coming out with the color system, and I haven't seen a review yet here in the United States, so I will be doing a full video series on that new
Good.
program. I'll be discontinuing the Red Sea Color program temporarily and doing a 10-week period of this new KZ all in one, and then doing a full review on that. So I mean, we'll be able to tell within 10 weeks if it's going to be beneficial for me.
That's cool, man. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
It's gonna be
So.
a good one. So here's another just question, not off topic, but off my question list. What's it cost you to run the Red Sea Core or the Color program on a monthly basis?
I really don't have a monthly estimate. I'd have to break it up here.
Well, say, what do you buy something that lasts like 3 months or so or
Well,
something?
I buy the 500 milliliters, and I get them at of a better premium than the average
Yeah.
Joe would. And it cost me like $60 for 6 months.
Oh yeah, that's not bad.
And
Either
then
way, even if it's like $100 for 6 months, that's not bad.
yeah, I mean it's about 6 months, and I dose
But you're
I
probably
dose
heavy.
no, I'm at 3 milliliters of each a day. The rule of thumb is 1 milliliter per 50 milliliters of calcium a day. So I do about 150 milliliters of calcium, so that's 3 milliliters.
Yeah.
And I dose that every day of each one, and it gives me about 6 months. Now for this new KZ product, I'm getting 10 weeks for about 73. So it's not,
Hopefully it's worth it.
double. Yeah, we'll find out. And I mean,
Well,
and I love KZ, and I've been using it for a long time, and everything's worth a shot in my book.
so
Everything's worth a
what do you
shot.
mean by you've been using KZ for a while?
KZ products are all the Zeovit products.
Oh, okay,
Um,
yeah, you mentioned
and
that.
all that stuff, and I use them in my freshwater. I mean, not my freshwater. I use them like Coral Vitalizer, Coral Snow, all that stuff. I use that in this tank already. So I've had good luck with them. So I want to give this new color system a shot because why not, right? So, and a lot of people have been kind of giving me
It'll be
slack.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
they've been
it'll
giving
be
me
cool.
slack because they're like, hey, why fix something that isn't broken? And that's not the point of this hobby. The point of this hobby is once you
To
get to a
progress.
certain point, you want to progress and see what things work. And I want to, take this leap for everybody who hasn't taken it and say, hey, this is what's worked for me, and give people a fair, review on it. So.
Yeah, so that's gonna be a really really cool series because I know we had the Zeovit system going on, and I was enjoying that
Hmm.
because like a lot of people they have questions, they're interested in doing something or buying something, and then they watch a review like you had with the Zeovit. So it was nice, and you were at like what week 6 or something on.
I was at, I think it was higher than that. I want to say week 8 or something like that before it went down.
Yeah,
And it was just
you
getting
really
started,
went
man.
down.
Yeah, I really went down. Yeah, and it really was just getting good after getting through those initial phases of cycling and all that stuff, and it just really started showing the color, and then it just sucked, man.
Yeah,
So.
that's not a good thing. I remember
Mhm.
that was like right when I subscribed to you because that was probably like 4 months or so ago, something
Mhm.
like that. If I had
Yeah.
to guess
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
something. And I remember I think the first video I watched when you had like a little mini crash. You went on vacation.
Mhm.
You had mother-in-law coming over fixing your tank or
Yeah,
something.
mom did. Yeah, yeah. So.
Yes, I think that was the first video I ever watched, and then it's the rest is history. I mean, I'd like to say we're decently good friends. Um, so next question. Target feeding. Do you target feed your corals? Do you recommend it? Do you think it's
Mhm.
BS? What do you think?
I have noticed a difference. I used to do a lot of different things when it came to feeding. I use Julian's thing, which is the target feeder. I haven't done a review on it. I did do a video a long, long time ago on feeding coral. It's like one of my first ones. I mean, the channel's only 9 months old, and it seems like it's been forever ago.
It was
Um,
400 videos ago.
yeah, something like that. Actually, yeah, something like that, like 130. Anyways, um, I like to target feed once every 2 weeks, and I use BRS Reef Chili. I put some Phyto in there if I have some, and that's about it. And then I just target feed with that, and I do some bigger pieces like mysis or something. But I do it every other week. That's it, man. I don't every week. I mean, some people do it multiple times during a week. I don't really feel a need to. It just
I
kind of adds to the nutrients of the tank. So.
Yeah, I've been doing it twice a week basically. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but what I've been doing is I like kind of switch up. I don't have like an actual feeding regimen for my fish and my corals. But what I do is I do like pellets one day, and the next day I'll grab. I got some freeze dried shrimp, so I'll crush that up, throw it in there. Next day I'll do flakes, and then I have like a cocktail of frozen stuff, so I'll do that. But like probably twice a week when I do one of the frozen foods, I
Hmm.
will do like a half scoop of reef chili, and then I'll target feed. I'll turn my fans off. I will just, I'll suck some out of the top where there's no like chunks of mysis, and I'll spray it over my zoanthus, the smaller ones. But I have noticed a difference with my ACAN, the
Hmm.
ACAN you gave me. It seems like I think I have, when I got it from you like a month, 5, 6 weeks ago, whatever, it had 2 heads. Now I have 4, and
Hmm.
especially the big one, he's doing good. So I target feed that. I do my I do my Recordia, and I do my Dunkins, and then like a couple of my like Zoas and Pallies, the big head ones. I'll
Hmm.
do those. But do you think like two? Because I do it 2 times a week. Is that
Well, I
overkill?
think I think it is in your situation, just because I know that you're struggling with a nutrient issue already. And I mean, personally, if I was in your situation, I wouldn't be feeding my fish every day. If I was in your situation, my fish should be fed every other day or every 3 days, minimal amount of food to help them, at least eat and survive and all that stuff. I wouldn't feed my corals at all, because when you feed your fish, you're going to be feeding the corals, partially feeding the corals anyways. And I think it's more nutrient dependent. I mean, if you're struggling with a certain thing, uh, adding to it with excess food and stuff in hopes to making the coral happier isn't going to work out, because the coral is going to be unhappy based on the water parameters that you're providing, and then by adding food, you're just making those water parameters worse, pissing the coral off and defeating the purpose of feeding them in the first place.
Mhm.
So I think if you cut back to either not feeding until we get the system up, the 75 up, or and somebody else, or for anybody else, I mean, feeding once a week or every other week, once a month. I mean, or you don't even have to at all. It just depends on your system, how your corals react, and how much you're feeding your main display fish. So I hope that kind of cleared up that a little
Yeah,
bit answer-wise. So
maybe I'll cut back. I mean, like I said, I've seen some growth out of my Dunkins and my A cans. So maybe I'll just twice a month, maybe, just to kind of make me feel better that I'm actually feeding them.
well, they don't need it. I mean, it's not something they need. You don't need. I mean,
But I've noticed a difference.
well, yeah. I mean,
Maybe
you'll notice a
maybe it's
difference.
just growing and
They're just
it's
probably just growing, to be honest with you. I mean, I went 3 months without even feeding my tank at all, any coral food, and my stuff still grew
yeah.
just as normal. You might get a little bit more polyp extension now that you're feeding them, but at the end of the day, if you're feeding and you are fighting a nutrient issue, you are defeating the purpose.
Mm,
So that's my opinion on it. I'm sure everybody has their own opinion, but
yeah.
that's mine. So
You know what opinions are like.
assholes, everyone has one,
Of
right?
course.
Yeah. Oh, I'll say it, dude.
So here's another question. And this is assuming, my 75 goes well and parameters are where they should be.
Mhm.
Say I bring home like a little whatever. I bring home a little frag. It's tiny. It's an inch tall. Say it's an acro frag or whatever. Assuming that my water parameters stay where they need to be, how long until that acro frag or frog spawn frag is like the size of a baseball? Is that something that takes 6 months, a year, or 2 months? Like, what
Oh,
do you think?
that's system dependent, man. I can't give you an answer for that. I mean, something might grow better in your system than it will grow mine, and vice versa. I mean, there's really no saying. Granted, if you start off with a bigger frag, you're gonna have the potential of, say you get an acropora that has more than one stem. It has like 10 stems, right?
Hmm.
Well, each one of those stems are gonna grow off, instead of starting from one and growing off. So I mean, it's gonna grow faster the bigger the frag. But to say if it's gonna be a baseball size in 6 months, I mean, that's on you and
But is that
how
like
you
at
feed
least
it.
like a year plus? It's not something that's going to happen in 3 months.
Well, I mean, let's just take my bird's nest colony on the left-hand side, for example.
Yep.
That was one stick,
Okay.
one stick with a nub, uh,
Your
nine and
tank's
a
9 months old?
9.5 months old,
Okay.
and it's about the size, a little less than a basketball. So, but I know people who have a bird's nest that had the same frag, and then a year later it's only the size of a softball. So it
Yeah.
just depends, and it's not doesn't really say anything about that person. It just says that your system isn't where it should be for that particular coral, but you might
Yeah.
grow another coral better.
Okay.
It's just you just kind of got to keep that perspective there.
Well, good. So just a couple small, or just go. Here's one question I kind of wrote down while we were talking. Is there any corals? This is off. This isn't for anybody. This is just for my knowledge. Any corals that you've had experience with that you didn't do well with over the years?
The elegance coral has been the one that he kind of got the elegance. I think it's like elegance coral disease or something. Like my system was growing everything great, and this coral just welted away. There was did
Yeah.
nothing. Everything was good. I mean, it's growing acros like no problem, but it just didn't do well. So that was the elegance coral, and I can't grow leather corals in my tank. I just can't do it. It's probably because of the lack of
Not enough
nutrients.
nutrients.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's certain softies that don't grow very well. But the yellow button polyp softie, that zoantha, that thing grows like a freaking weed. Um, but yeah, leathers don't do well with leathers, and then that one elegance coral, that was it. That's really the only issues I've had
Yeah.
recently.
I
So
had the one. candy cane coral. And now that I kind of know a little more, I think it was like not doing well when I bought it. But at the time I was like, oh, this thing looks cool. Let me buy it. And it didn't do well. So now I'm kind of iffy. I want to get one because I see a lot of channels, especially like newer guys that have like a thriving one. I
Hmm.
just haven't found one yet that I like. I mean, a lot of the ones that I see in the stores, they just look like crap. But that was the one that I like didn't have the best of luck with. That's really the only coral that I bought
Hmm.
that I had to take out. I mean, everything else is either where it was because my calcium levels are too high, or it's grown. So like
Hmm.
that's the one of mine that I'd like to conquer eventually because I think they do look cool. But last question for me. I'm kind of running out of time. Um, and this isn't for anybody's help or knowledge or anything, but what's the most you've ever spent on a coral?
Was that elegance?
What would that cost?
It was 130 bucks.
I've seen
Yeah.
they look pretty cool
But
though,
that
man.
was before I ran into my connections, man. This was a long, 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 long
Now
time
you're gonna
ago.
get one for like $40.
Oh, less than that.
Really?
Yeah, it
Damn,
just
dude.
depends. But I'm not an LPS fan, man. I mean, I am, but I'm not. I mean, I just kind of, I'm at the point now where I love sticks so much. I love
I,
seeing the
you
growth
do
on a
love
weekly
steak.
basis. Yeah, shut the fuck up. I love seeing the growth on a weekly basis that LPS just don't do it for me anymore. I mean, they do, but they don't. I mean, seeing a new head on an Aiken's cool, but seeing an entire nest just take off is more of my.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really cool. And like even like I haven't gotten to that point where I'm seeing it take off, but like a couple of the corals that you sent me, like the couple of the acros and like I have an encrusting hydrophora. Like it's cool to see at the base that it's actually encrusting. So
Hmm.
like not that it's getting bushy or anything, but it's cool to actually see it encrusting. It kind of makes me feel like even though I'm not doing a lot right, that I'm doing something right. At
Something
least
right. Yeah, that
growing.
justification. Yeah, yeah. And that's just, that's just how I progress. Everybody progresses differently, and I just kind of moved into that mindset that I want to see it grow on a weekly basis. I want to see that my efforts on a daily basis are paying off at the end of the
Yeah.
week, per se, kind of like getting your own little check at the end of the week
Yep.
after, oh, I did all my maintenance and look at my tank looks, good or it's grown.
Speaking of maintenance, that video you put out for your congratulations on the 100K, man. That's
Oh yeah,
our 1,000
100K I wish,
subscribers
bro,
on
right? Yeah,
100K
100K. Yeah,
views,
yeah.
but 1,000
Hmm.
subscribers, man. That's a big milestone, and I certainly will be posting my videos soon. But yeah, back to that video, dude. That was cool. It's cool to see somebody else do their maintenance. You see a bare bottom tank, you don't realize how much shit settles on the bottom. So it's kind of
Yeah.
crazy to see all that stuff
Yeah,
up
and I,
there.
and I get most of it out, man, and that's one of the reasons why I have a bare bottom tank is because I can just stick that power head in there, blow everything up. Filter socks
Yeah,
were just packed full. I went through, that filter socks I changed that video. I changed them out the night before I went to sleep just because they were just
yeah.
yeah. So
Well,
it
man,
was
it was
great.
fun.
All right,
We
man.
still have our Apex video to do, but that's
Hmm.
going to take me a few days to come up with questions because there's a lot of them.
Yeah, that's fine, man. All right, guys. Well, anyways, like I said, I'll put before as in all my videos, I'll put Mike's channel in the link in the description, and you guys can check him out. And as always, guys, I appreciate you watching. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks,
Peace.
guys.
Yep.